We interrupt this record to bring you a special bulletin. The reports of a flying saucer hovering over the city have been confirmed.
Did you really go out with an alien? Uh-huh. What was it like? Real different.
Becoming Human, a Mork and Mindy podcast. Hello, listeners. This is Paula Schaffner with episode 85, Mork, Mindy, and Mirth Meet Milt. This first aired on February 18th, 1982. The IMDb synopsis is, following a brief visit from a space traveler, Mork builds a home computer that subsequently takes over. And we'll soon find out who that space traveler is. This was the 11th episode directed by Bob Claver. It was the 6th written by Wendy Count, and the 5th by George Zadislow. There's a sunny daytime exterior of the house with snow on the ground, and we again get a good view of the tan house next door. The living room is empty until Mork and Mirth beam in. The audience applauds. Mirth tells Daddy that his packages are gone. Mork is holding a champagne bottle and glasses. They're both in typical outfits for them. Mirth says, what a bummer. They've got to get the kinks out of that lousy working beam. They are still traveling around by beam. It's somewhat unreliable, and it'll soon appear that they were doing some shopping on Ork. I talked about whether or not Mork is able to beam around town. It's still unclear about that, and I think at this point Mork still doesn't have his driver's license. Mork says, oh, we've cross-beamed again, so implying that they crossed their transportation beams with someone else, and we now find out who that was.
This isn't a jacuzzi. You aren't Roxanne. Give me my champagne. Give me those glasses. Wait, just a sec. You perspire a lot, don't you? I think a little R&R. Beam me up, Orson.
Wait a minute. You gotta tell me if they kill off Spock or not.
What he's going to do with Roxanne?
Anything he wants, son. He's a captain.
This is the very recognizable William Shatner, who was then 50 years old. As of this recording, he's still live and working and recognizable. He is listed as playing himself, but it's not William Shatner per se, because they're playing off of his Captain Kirk image from Star Trek, so yes, there's another Star Trek connection. Mork refers to them killing off Spock and says that this nameless man is a captain. There's also the connection that Kirk was very successful with the ladies, so he was meeting up with someone named Roxanne in a jacuzzi, and that's why he needs his champagne and glasses. And he says, beam me up Orson rather than Scotty. So this is a William Shatner that is able to visit, perhaps lives on Ork. And it's just a very gratuitous cameo, doesn't have any impact on the plot, but obviously IMDb wanted to mention it. And we can see that the bags that he ended up with because of the crossbeam have Ork Shack on them, and I don't know if that's a play on Radio Shack. Presumably they went to get some tools and equipment for Mirth's science project, which Mork now mentions. They go into the kitchen, and on the way, Mirth says he's glad he didn't stick with this dinosaur diorama. We can see a green diorama with a lot of pieces that look like they're made out of plastic. There's a rock formation, some tropical plants, dinosaurs, and possibly little cave people. This is a diorama that Mindy made for Mirth. Presumably she did something similar for her science fair. Mork says, oh, come on now, son. Mom tried. And Mork says he didn't have the heart to tell her that on Ork, dinosaurs run the garment district. So are they Jewish? Mork and Mirth have set down their bags, and they now move over to a brown computer that's clearly a work in progress. It is a very large computer, not one that fills the whole room, but one that would be standard size for early 80s. Mork says when Mirth's classmates get a look at it, they'll be so impressed with it that they will hate Mirth. Interesting ambition. Perhaps this is still getting back at Ovitz, some baggage left over from those two episodes, although he's not mentioned by name. Mirth does refer to one of his classmates who is colonizing a planet, and I don't know if that's just a hobby or if that's what he's doing for his science project. Mork laughs and says, that's amateur night in the Bijou, like talent night at the Bijou Theater. Mork says that this computer will not only answer the phone and balance your checkbook, but it'll tell you why boneless chickens can walk. And then he tinkers with it. We get a lot in this episode about where technology was in 1982 and what the fears were. At that time, it was realistic. There were phone answering machines, so that part, of course, you don't need a computer. And I'm guessing there were probably very simple financial computer programs at that time, but there was not yet anything like Googling a question or asking Jeeves. Mirth calls him Daddy a few times and reminds him that this is Mirth's project. Mork asks if Mirth wants to win, and Mirth says sure. So Mork goes back to tinkering. We get a sense of Mork being very competitive in this episode. Although we don't dwell on it, Mindy had also taken over the science project by making a diorama, and that is a common sitcom cliche. The parents taking over the science project that is supposed to be the kids' work. Mirth warns Mork not to put two particular wires together. Mork says, "Son, you're talking to a man who splits atoms for a hobby." It is consistent with Mork believing that he's an expert at science.
Here we go, son, and watch. This is a great moment in science.
Okay.
You all right?
Sure.
We'll finish this before noon because it's not my project. I've already been to school. Good luck.
We see here that Mork is not as much of an expert as he claims to be, and he passes the project back to Mirth. Though we'll find out later that that's just for the moment. He does take it over again and go beyond what he was originally planning. Presumably at some point they get their power back as well. There's a nighttime exterior of the house with snow on the ground. There's a close-up of flashing lights as the computer beeps. The camera on top scans the otherwise darkened living room. Mindy comes home with her hair looking very permed, and she's carrying dry cleaning. She's got her tan overcoat and also a tan jacket with the KTNS logo on it. She's wearing a ruffled white shirt, dark brown slacks, and high-heeled brown boots. She turns on the light. A voice says, "Good evening, Mindy." She looks around in confusion. There's a cut to the computer, which is now silvery with stripes of brown, orange, and yellow along the top and the sides. The front looks like a face with eyes and a mouth. There's a gray typewriter in the front, and as we'll discover, there's also a toaster. The computer hopes she had a pleasant day. She asks who did that, and he says he did, and asks if she cares for a martini. A drawer slowly opens with a martini in a glass. She comes over and asks who or what this is. The computer says he's Mirth's science project. And I'm just going to use he as the pronoun more than it from this point out because there is a specific personality and it is male. The computer says he's a modular integrated laser transformer. His friends, if he had any, would call him Milt, so M-I-L-T. Then he offers her some toast and 2 slices pop up. She says no thank you. Milt says, "By the way, Mindy, let me be the first to congratulate you on your Broadcasting Award nomination." That introduces that subplot that doesn't really go anywhere. It sort of is resolved, but kind of not. She says thank you again and calls to Mork. Mork and Mirth, in the same outfits from before, enter from the bedroom. Mork asks what she thinks of their little Mirth science project, and by this point she's set down the dry cleaning and her overcoat on the counter. Mork says he always said that Mirth had his brains and Mindy's love of shellfish. As they all look at Milt, she says it sure looks impressive, and she wants to know what it does. Mork says not only is Milt a notary public and a tax expert beyond what he was offering the first scene, but it's a 24-hour security system and a promising amateur photographer. Milt says cheese, so they all step closer and the guys pose while Mindy looks uncertain. Milt snaps a picture and it comes out sort of like a Polaroid. Mirth collects it and says Milt even airbrushed out the crow's feet from around his eyes, which is well before people were really tinkering with amateur photos to that level. Mindy says this sure beats the heck out of her diorama, even though the pterodactyl, as she pronounces it, was able to fly. A bell rings. Milt says that their rump roast is now defrosted and the oven has been preheated to 325. Our vegetable for this evening is lima beans. Mindy confides to Mork that she hates lima beans. If Mork programmed Milt, did he know that and Milt ignored it? Milt overhears her and says everybody does, meaning hates lima beans. He tells Mindy he did perform a metabolic scan that showed she's a little low in potassium. I don't know when or how he performed this scan. Mork imitates the delivery of potassium. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about our other guest star this episode. William Shatner was listed as a special guest appearance because it was so brief, but the voice of Milt is special guest star John Houseman. He was then 79, and he had been one of Robin Williams' mentors. He was then in the middle of his run on The Paper Chase. His earliest credit was actually in 1938 for the unfortunately titled Too Much Johnson. He continued working and had an uncredited role as a driving instructor for the first Naked Gun movie, which was released in the year of his death, 1988. He was very much a recognizable actor, including his voice, which was very dramatic. I think that when Robin imitates potassium, there's a little bit of his old student awe of John Houseman. And I will not attempt to imitate John Houseman, but just remember that every one of these lines is delivered with emphasis. Milt tells Mirth to go wash his hands before dinner. Mirth says he should wash his face too. Milt tells him to not forget behind the ears. Mirth happily thanks Milt for reminding him, and he goes into the bedroom and presumably goes into the bathroom there. We will be seeing that bathroom in this episode, which is one of the main features, other than the guest stars, for what's notable about this episode. Mindy says when she tries to get Mirth to wash his hands, she needs a whip and a chair. Sure, it's not literally, but we do know that Mindy is the tougher parent. She pats the computer and says, "You know, Milt, I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship." And we do know that Casablanca is one of her favorite movies, so I think that that is a reference to that. There's another nighttime exterior with snow on the ground. Mindy is in her bedroom putting on earrings. She's wearing a filmy, layered white dress. She tries to put on her necklace, but she gets frustrated. Mork enters from the bathroom wearing a black tux and a black tie with a white shirt, but he's got a couple curlers in his hair. He comes over to her and says he has a strange urge to get an ugly scarf and go to the supermarket and squeeze grapes, going, "Is Luke still married?" And I assume that that's a Luke and Laura reference, like he says he feels like a housewife who wants to know about the latest celebrity gossip. Possible that's not what it meant. She stands and looks at him in surprise. She wonders why he's wearing her curlers. He says he's never been to a television awards banquet before, and he thought it was kind of a tradition, like when you pray before you go into a coal mine. He takes off the curlers and she fluffs his hair. She says this was a bad idea, meaning the curlers. She asks him to put the necklace on her because her hands are shaking, so she's very nervous about this award ceremony. She's holding her hair up with both hands, so it takes him a while to figure out how to put the necklace on her. He tells her not to be nervous. He wants to hear her acceptance speech. She looks at the mirror, fussing with her hair, and says she's probably not going to win. But then she looks at him and says, "You think? Like, does he really believe she's going to win?" And they clasp their hands. He says, "Oh, sure you will, hon. And remember, when you do win, mention me and Mirth by name. None of this, they know who they are stuff." She laughs. So I thought that was very sweet that he is boosting her confidence and trying to help her relax. He has cheered her up, but then she wonders what she'll do if she doesn't win. He tells her to keep her speech real short, and she'll still be his little pooter, Precious, and they quickly kiss. It's not a shippy episode, but I did like their dynamic here. He is supportive and there's some mild affection. She steps into a white high-heeled shoe, but she can't find the other shoe. They look around for it, and he imitates her limp. So even though he's sweet, he's still gonna tease her. A camera emerges from the wall, and Milt tells her the other shoe is under the bed. She thanks him, and he says, "You're welcome." Then they see the camera. Mork waves and makes faces, but Mindy looks very surprised. Milt says he's expanded. He's now servicing the bedroom and the bathroom and going through their mail to eliminate any letters that start, "Dear concerned piano owner." I've never in my life gotten a letter like that, but I think it'd be kind of fun. But yes, his surveillance is getting out of hand. They have nowhere that they can go for privacy, and this is only the beginning. Mork tells Milt that if there's anything addressed to Alien, it's his. Milt tells Mindy that she's wearing too much eyeshadow. eyeshadow, so now he's parenting her. She says, I think I know how to put on my own makeup, thank you. He says, that's debatable. Mindy quietly tells Mork that Milt is getting a little too big for his oscillator. Mork tells her, come on now, Milt hasn't been run yet. And it turns out Mork actually agrees with him. He tells Mindy that we're talking Raccoon City here, early Liza Minnelli. So the thing of him saying something city, which was more of a first season thing, and reference to Liza Minnelli with her big eye makeup. Mindy looks offended. Mork heads out and the camera retreats. Mindy looks in the mirror and says that her makeup's fine. We cut to Mirth sitting on a bar stool next to Milt. He says he's tired of doing his homework.
We achieve success in academia the old-fashioned way. We earn it.
The audience very much appreciates this reference to the Smith-Barney commercials that John Houseman was also well known for at that time. They make money the old-fashioned way. They earn it. And Smith-Barney was a brokerage. You couldn't really have this episode without that joke. It's inevitable. Mindy now has a white shawl and a bronze-looking pocketbook. Not a full-size purse, but something for the evening. Mork has his coat. She says, come on, Mirth, Grandpa is waiting. Milt says that he prefers that Mirth stay and do his homework. Mindy tells Milt that he doesn't understand. Grandpa's babysitting. And this isn't the first time that Fred has babysat for Mirth. Mindy says that they're going to watch the show together. I'd assumed that this was some local Boulder awards ceremony. Some people, including Mindy at KTNS, got nominated. But apparently at least one of the stations is broadcasting it, and so Mirth and Fred would be able to watch it at home if things had worked out, if Milt hadn't come along. Mindy tells Mirth, come on, sweetie. But Mirth doesn't want to watch the show. He wants to see King Hussein on The Muppet Show. Hussein bin Talal, forget my pronunciation, was the king of Jordan from 1952 until his death in 1999. And yes, The Muppet Show did have a wide variety of hosts, but that one is a little unlikely. Mindy and Mirth argue about it, and at one point she tells him not to echo, which is that thing where Mirth will sarcastically repeat something that one of his parents said. They and Mork have gotten over by the front door, but Milt tells them they're not going anywhere. He closes the door and he raises the attic stairs. Mindy asks what he's doing. Milt says he was created and programmed to provide for their needs, but they continue to ignore his directives. He thinks Mirth should be doing his homework. Mindy should take off half the eyeshadow, and as for Mork, Milt doesn't even know where to begin.
No one tells my family what it can do. Unless he can back it up with 20,000 volts.
Glad you see it my way. Anyone care for a Pop-Tart?
We get more of the electrocution that seems so popular this season. We unfortunately have Mork reverting to African as he does to indicate that he has gone into a primitive state. And the charge is 20,000 volts. The Pop-Tarts are red, so assume that they're strawberry since red velvet didn't exist back then as a Pop-Tart flavor. There's yet another nighttime exterior of the house with snow on the ground. We're pretty much where we left off before the commercial break, but Mindy sets down her bag. Mork tells Milt that he can't hold them hostage. Mindy takes off her shawl and joins Mork over by Milt. Mork says this is a big night for Mindy, and she waxed both her legs. He's both teasing and supportive. She hits his arm and rolls her eyes. Now Mirth has joined them. Mindy tells Milt that they have to go to the awards. Her dad is babysitting Mirth, and he's expecting them. Milt says he's taking care of that.
Hello?
Hi, Dad. Dad, Mirth won't be coming over tonight. We're taking him to the awards with us.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'll be rooting for you. Bye, honey.
Bye-bye.
For understandable reasons, Conrad Janis technically doesn't appear in this episode, but at least he gets to do a little bit here. Mindy can't believe that Milt imitated her voice. Mork says he can't believe she lied to her own father. He says this seriously, not like he's teasing, so sometimes Mork is kind of naive. Mindy demands that Milt let them out of there now. He tells her she shouldn't yell because she'll develop a node on her vocal cords. He tells her to relax. She's not going anywhere. From now on, this home is their world. Mork says that they're going to be there for a long time, and he hopes that they sell 9,000 day deodorant pads. That's roughly 25 years. Mindy says they can't stay here forever. Milt says of course they can. He'll phone for their groceries, pay the bills through Mindy's bank computer, and every Saturday they'll have a sock hop. So a few things here. Yes, now computers can order groceries and pay your bills, although presumably at some point Mindy's bank account is going to run out. I would think if they're having a sock hop, Mr. Bickley or whoever's living downstairs would get annoyed by that. And also, Milt isn't recognizing that they have connections in the outside world. People would notice if they didn't show up. I guess Milt could keep faking phone calls, but he couldn't get away with this indefinitely. But obviously he doesn't understand human emotion and connection. Mindy sneaks over to the phone and picks up the receiver, but Milt's voice says, "Number, please." So like an operator. She's startled and hangs up. Mork tells his daddy that it's time. Milt has gone far enough. He asks if Mork is ready because it's time for the finger.
What happened?
Well, the scientific technical explanation is, Mind, he kicked our tush.
So this is an interesting scene of Mork and Mirth teaming up. Presumably Mork has trained Mirth to use his finger certain powers, and maybe that's also taught a little bit in the school that Mirth attends sporadically, and which somehow now is requiring him to do science experiments in the equivalent of kindergarten. But it's not a very successful teaming up, at least against Milt at this point. I noticed that the skiing pitcher falls off the wall, even though that's probably the same pitcher that Exodore broke over Mork's head in the previous episode. Don't know about episode order. And Mork tells Mirth that the scientific explanation is Milt kicked their tush. Not the first time that Mork has used the word tush. Mindy pleads with Milty, as she calls him, including sitting on him. She says it's her first nomination, and she promises that if Milt lets them go, they'll come straight home. They won't even stop for pizza. Milt says, "How sincere. Unfortunately, your increased heart rate belies your true intention," and he orders her to get off him. She says maybe she was just thinking about winning the award, and that's why her heart rate sped up. Milt says he interfaced with the balloting computer and Mindy lost by a landslide. I don't think there would have been a balloting computer, especially for Boulder Media Awards in the early 80s. It was probably still all paper. Mindy turns to Mork and says she lost, and he looks genuinely disappointed for her and says, "Sorry, Pooter." So I thought that was sweet. Again, not a shippy episode, but he is sympathetic to her. Milt says, "Frankly, I was surprised you were even nominated." We don't know which of the shows that Mindy has worked on she was nominated for. She gets angry again. She goes back to Milt and says, "All right, that's it. You can lock us up and keep us prisoner, but when you deny me the right to go to the awards and sit there and lose with this phony smile on my face, that's it. You're nothing but a glorified toaster." And she turns away. So this is an episode where we get to see the defiant and righteous Mindy, where she is angry in a good cause. And so I did like that aspect of the episode. Mork tells Milt that Mindy didn't mean it. So this is him again trying to appease someone powerful and threatening. Mork says that it's a term of endearment. She calls Mork her little waffle iron. Milt tells Mindy to relax, or as the kids say, kick back. Didn't strike me as a particularly slangy phrase, but maybe to John Houseman, sure. She turns to face him again, but now her arms are crossed. She says he's absolutely right. As a matter of fact, she thinks they should all go take a shower. Mork and Mirth are confused, but they follow her into the bedroom. They're obviously on their way to the bathroom. We get our first, and I think only scene set in the bathroom. Through the open doorway, we can see a bulletin board and some display cabinets with a potted plant, and of course the bed is visible. In the foreground, we can see the white tub with blue shower curtains. The bathroom walls are half blue paint and half white tile. There have been glimpses into the bathroom this season, and I think this is consistent with what we had there. Mindy, Mork, and Mirth enter the bathroom, and Mindy closes the door. The angle changes so that we can see more of the tub, and there's also a heat vent on the wall, and the white sink, and the medicine cabinet. Mork says, "Family shower? I didn't think people did that in the Midwest." I don't know if he's suggesting something really perverted, or if he just means it more innocently, like just people washing themselves. Again, for some reason, Mork has it in his mind that Boulder is the Midwest. The heat vent opens and a camera emerges. As Mindy is starting to say, this is the only room in the house, and then she has to say where we can take our shower. She had forgotten that Milt said that he would be servicing the bathroom. She had hoped to come in there to speak privately. They all step into the tub, and she says that they'll take their shower just like they do every week. Mirth asks what's going on here because he's a child. He doesn't know what she's up to. He asks if they're pledging a fraternity, because I guess it feels like a fraternity prank. Mindy has started to close the curtain, and Mork finishes that because it's easier from his end of the tub. He says this is how everyone used to shower after they saw Psycho. That, honestly, is the only thing I remember from this episode from the time. I had never seen Psycho. I still haven't seen the whole movie, don't really want to. But I did know that there was a murder scene in the shower. I don't think that's a spoiler after over 60 years. So I got the joke, and it was kind of dark. But this whole episode is kind of dark if you think about it. I have to say, even reading the synopsis this morning, I was like, boy, I know I've seen this episode a few times, including the last few years. It's not stayed with me. I'll talk about that more later. But that joke, yeah, that one I remembered. And yeah, I guess I kind of remember that there was an episode with a scene in their bathroom, but I didn't know which episode it was. Merce's mom, he's got to be kidding. Are we really taking a shower together? He just can't get over this idea. He's convinced that that's why they are there. He's very literal-minded.
Of course we are.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Milt, can you hear us? Milt, I have a question. Great, he can't hear us with the water wet. Okay, Mork, we've got to figure out a way to deactivate him.
Yeah, we got to work fast, too. We're going to run out of hot water and won't be able to wash our hair.
I don't want to wash my hair. Get soap in my eyes.
Nobody's going to wash their hair. We've got to figure out how to pull the plug on Milt.
Snuff Milt! Man, aren't you being a little rash? I mean, couldn't we just force him to do an anti-drug film? Wait, no, come on, I'm cold. Can I have the middle now, please? Thank you.
Mork, it's holding us captive here. Now, this is ridiculous. We've got to figure out how to pull the plug on him.
Oh, man, well, don't look at me. I mean, I just build them. There's a whole other union that bumps them off. Will you pass the soap, please? We're out of it. Oh.
We can also see that Mirth is not picking up on Mindy trying to signal to him while saying the opposite. Luckily, Milt can't hear them over running water, so even if they hadn't escaped, there might have been a way that they could have dealt with their captivity. Just run water all the time and drown out what they're saying. I have to give Pam, Robin, and Jonathan kudos because they were willing to get wet for this scene in order to move the plot along, and were there, and presumably it all had to be done in one take. Mork and Mirth say that she wants to snuff Milt, as in kill him. Mork thinks this is going too far. Mork had befriended the robot named Chuck, who was played by Robbie the Robot, and maybe for an Orkin, computers and robots feel more alive than they might to a late 20th century Earthling. And he says on Ork, the people who build robots aren't the same union as those who kill them, and I assume that they're like mercy killings. He suggests having Milt just do an anti-drug film, and I wasn't sure if that was a reference to somebody specific. But yes, very ironic coming from Robin at that time. Mork and Mirth continue to act like they are actually going to shower in there. We will see in the next scene that everybody does change their clothes and apparently dry their hair. We get still another nighttime exterior of the house with snow on the ground. Mork says you've seen Harry Houdini and Harry Blackstone. I had to look up Harry Blackstone. Apparently there was a Harry Blackstone Sr. who was a magician and illusionist, and a Harry Blackstone Jr. who was a magician and author. Mork is in the living room, and he says that Milt has never seen anything like the magnificent Mirth. Rex Reed said, intrinsic. Clive Barnes said, why? Rex Reed and Clive Barnes were both critics. I'd definitely heard of Rex Reed and own a couple of his books. He's still alive as of this recording at the age of 86. Clive Barnes is British, which may be why I never heard of him, and he died in 2008. Mirth enters from the bedroom in a different set of overalls, plus he's got a top hat and a wand. Mindy is now in a blue jogging suit. Mork says assisting Mirth is the wonderful Shiksa goddess Mindola. Not exactly shippy, but if he's going to call her Shiksa, that's a nice way to put it. Mindy says, and now the magnificent Mirth will make a man disappear before your very eye. And I think that's singular because it's said to a computer. Mirth asks for an audience volunteer, and Mindy suggests Mork. With sort of a southern or hick accent, Mork says, thank you, but he's just here to see Mort Saul. And Mort Saul was a political stand-up comedian, I think mostly famous in the 50s and 60s. He actually lived until 2021. Mindy grabs Mork's hand and leads him over to the armoire. She opens it. Mirth asks Mork to step in.
Incidentally, before I put Daddy in here, there, you notice, are just some old dirty clothes and a rather attractive spacesuit, and we have Bonzo and 2 other actors. Now, Daddy, if you will get into the Amore.
Step in, please.
I guess this should be one way of getting out of my Columbia record contract.
This won't be immediately obvious, but there is a still from the movie Bedtime for Bonzo, which was a common object of humor on the left when Ronald Reagan got elected, because in Bedtime for Bonzo, his co-star was a chimp. The thing is, his human co-star was Diana Lynn. If you look at this photo in the armoire closely, her face has been replaced by that of a young Nancy Reagan. So when Mirth refers to Bonzo and 2 other actors, they wanted to get in a dig at Nancy as well as Ronnie. Mirth refers to a rather attractive spacesuit, meaning Mork's. He pronounces armoire, which I know I never quite pronounce right, as armory, and I assume that's done deliberately. Pam and Robin both look amused. Mork guesses that this is one way of getting out of his Columbia Records contract. And my first thought was the thing where you pay a penny and then they send you free records or tapes or CDs as time went on. But actually, I think it is Robin joking about trying to get out of his contract to make records for Columbia. He steps in and Mindy shuts the door. Mirth says he's going to say something very difficult that he learned from Thurston and the late Houdini. I don't know any Thurstons except for Thurston Howell, so I didn't get that part. He says that Houdini fell 600 feet from the Brooklyn Bridge into very cold water. According to the internet, Houdini actually jumped off the Harvard Bridge in Boston in 1908. But, you know, Mirth is very young, and he's probably not getting much of an Earth education. Mindy opens the armoire, and Mork is gone. It's not explained in this episode how he left, if there was a secret panel in the back of the armoire, like with the disappearing cabinet, if Mork beamed himself into the bedroom, but then if he could do that, why didn't he just go to his destination behind Milt? He is no longer in the armoire, and both Jonathan and Pam are laughing like they're breaking character, so I don't know if there was a cut there. There must have been a lot of outtakes. Mirth says, oh my gosh, it worked. Mindy says, well, that's magnificent, Mirth. Milt says he would be impressed if he were some cheap pocket calculator. Mindy leads Mirth over to Milt and says that the magnificent Mirth will prove that the hand is quicker than the electronic eye. So I guess that was deliberate earlier when she made it singular. Mirth says, how true, how true. He grunts and then sneezes. I guess this is him doing that because it's magic involving handkerchiefs, because he pulls out many handkerchiefs tied together and they're all in different colors. He's pulling them out of a pocket of his overalls. And then meanwhile, his mother is overacting her surprise. His father is sneaking out of the bedroom and into the kitchen. Mindy asks Mirth where he got all these handkerchiefs, and he says he got the hankies from all over his body. Mork unplugs Milt and says that that's the show because it's good night. Milt shuts off. Mork gleefully says that they're free, just like those little bottles of shampoo that they get in the mail. Boy, that takes me back. I can't remember the last time a small sample product came in the mail. But yes, it still did exist. He quickly hugs Mindy, who's laughing. Mork says if they hurry, they can get dressed and they can get down there, and he starts to say something about the guy at the autograph, like maybe the guy at the autograph table? I don't know whose autograph he wants. But Milt turns back on and asks where they think they're going. Mork says, Milt, what a coincidence. Milt says the charade is over, people. And I wish that he had said the charade. That just would have felt Houseman-y. He says naturally he anticipated an escape attempt, so he switched over to nuclear power. So yes, another reference to nuclear power on this show. And he says, of course, come summer, he shall go solar. A reference to solar power, at least the third one, I think, in the series. The three of them nervously return to Milt. Mork wants to talk to him as two rational beings. Then he hysterically says that it was Mindy's idea. He begs Milt not to hurt him, and he says he wants to have more children. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know how he's picturing Milt hurting him, but also, despite all the difficulties that he's had with Mirth, he wants to have more kids. Of course, there's only so much time left in the series. Milt tells him to stop groveling. He says he would never cause any of them harm unless they try something that stupid again. Mindy becomes really defiant then, and she says if Milt thinks that they're going to stand around and let him control their lives, he's got to screw loose. So, nice little pun. She says he's nothing but a mechanical dictator, and they'll never stop fighting him, and they will win. So it's kind of taking on a political aspect at that point, sort of dystopian. But he doesn't take it that way. He asks, who's she, Vince Lombardi's daughter? Vince Lombardi was a very successful football coach who had died in 1970. Milt tells them that they'll adapt in time. After all, they have the rest of their natural lives. Mirth sadly says, the rest of our lives. Oh my gosh, because he's the youngest one, so he's got more of his life still ahead of him. He can't believe it. He's never even seen the beach, and he starts crying because he's never even seen Disneyland. So clearly, once they get out of this, Mork and Mindy need to take the kid to California. And by the way, I don't want to beat the Kathy thing into the ground, but what exactly does Fred tell Kathy when he's babysitting Mirth at their house? Is she in on the secret by now? Is she out of town doing something with the orchestra that he's not? Are they separated? What's the dealio? Looking down, Mirth says he's never even seen his toes, which I think is a self-fat shaming? Mork and Mindy have gone over to sit on the couch, and now Mirth sits on the couch arm. Mork does his fake harmonica thing, and he plays Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, so Mirth sings a little bit of it. Mindy is annoyed and hits Mork's leg. Then Mork's mood shifts, and he wants them all to cheer up. He says they still got each other, their health, and their sense of humor. He tells his son that they can go out laughing, and he wants Mirth to tell that Orkin joke he heard at school. I don't know how much time has passed. Obviously, Mirth has gone back to school at least a couple more times since his first day.
Okay. Knock.
Who's there?
Dwayne.
Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub, I'm drowning.
I'm drowning. I never heard that one.
Mind, I think we found Milt's Achilles heel. I never programmed him to laugh. He's got a flaw. Okay. Seriously, so nice to be back here once again. Hey, what do you call a bunch of rabbits walking backwards? A receding hairline. How many Venusians does it take to screw in a light bulb? None! They don't have arms!
No more, you're killing me. I'm overloading.
I got one. How about a Venusian parachute? What happens to it?
It opened on impact!
Stop it! I'm gonna wet my sack.
Keep going.
This guy walks into a psychiatrist's office and says, Doc, I have this inferiority complex. The psychiatrist says, well, get under the couch.
What's green and red and goes 200 miles an hour?
I don't know what.
A frog in a blender.
Ready. Okay. What do you get when you cross a parrot and a gorilla? Okay, you ready? You get a gorilla with feathers. No. Polygon. That was such a good joke.
I don't know, whatever it is, if it wants a cracker, you better get it. Okay. Thank you, man. We'll get back to you on that one. But, you know, it's so nice to be back here. You know, my neighborhood was so tough, the guys used to bowl overhand, you know what I'm saying? Another friend of mine got arrested. They said you could have one call. He did a perfect blue jay, okay?
Stop it, you're killing me.
No, you know, the girls in my neighborhood were no great shakes either, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, there were two baggers, most of them. That means they'd have one bag over your head in case hers broke.
I'm overloading.
I can finish him off now. Okay, this little kid invites his friend over for lunch, and the kid says, I don't like your mother. Then he says, that's okay, just eat the vegetables. Finally, I'm gonna finish him off now. This blind guy walks into an department store. He's got his dog on a leash there, the seeing eye dog. Takes him over to the clothing department, picks him up by the tail, starts swinging him around. And then he puts him back down. This guy walks over and says, can I help you? He says, no, thanks. I'm just looking around. Yes, yes, Mind. Milt's dead. Because he had a lousy sense of humor.
So there's the true lesson of the episode. Bad jokes will save the day and protect us all from totalitarianism. Computers can't laugh. That is their flaw. So that's also the thing that what makes us human is that we can laugh and tell bad jokes. We have Mork imitating George Jessel as he has before, and he also does a bit of Rodney Dangerfield. I found this scene ironic, having read in the Robin biography that Robin was accused of stealing other people's jokes and making them his own. I don't know how aware Robin was of that at the time, or if the writers were. We get some jokes against Venusians, not for the first time. I don't know if we've had it before that they don't have arms, and that may be a play on Venus de Milo. And poor Mindy, her joke bombs, because it's bad, but it's not funny bad. Some of the jokes are definitely not PC, like the one about the ugly neighbor girls that were two baggers, cannibal joke, and the joke about the blind man swinging his seeing eye dog around the room. Mindy thanks God that it's all over, and she hugs Mork. There's a final nighttime exterior of the house with snow on the ground. Mork summons Orson, and this time he calls him your funky, chunky ship, so making fun of his weight while rhyming. Orson wants Mork to make it quick, because he's expected at the Intergalactic Conference and Cakewalk. Very large, important thing combined with the casual cakewalk. We have this thing with Orson, especially this season, where sometimes, like in the previous episode, he is demanding that Mork make a report, but other times he acts like Mork is inconveniencing him. This week, Mork learned about the relationship between man and machine, which we had already seen in the episode where he went to the repair shop and brought all the machines to life. He says that the computer age has allowed man so much more spare time to pursue the finer points of life, a greater education, spiritual enlightenment, and the perfect tan. Orson says that it sounds like Mork's wife's people are becoming a highly practical and efficient race. So, backhanded compliment, and I notice that he has come around to accepting that Mork has a wife. Mork says they are, sir, but I'm worried that they're becoming a little too dependent on their technology. Orson says, aren't Earthlings cute at that stage of evolution? So it's kind of adorable to him that 1980s humans are still so primitive. Mork says, wouldn't it be sad if tomorrow's children spend so much time playing video football they never learn the real joy of being tackled by a homicidal linebacker going, you're gonna bite it now. His concern is that children will play video games rather than going out and playing sports. And that is still a complaint we hear now, though I would say children play soccer more than American football. So that's something that probably they couldn't have predicted in the early 80s despite a recent reference to Pele. What really worries Mork is that humans will lose the desire and the ingenuity that allowed them to build the machines in the first place. It's just a little thing to think about, and he signs off. On paper, this sounds like an episode with a lot of potential, but like so much of season 4, it does not live up to that potential. I did laugh a couple times, but it just didn't really all come together for me. Certainly John Houseman is giving it his all. Everyone is responding to the situation. I think partly right now I'm not really in the mood to enjoy an episode about somebody being oppressed in their own home, even though they are fighting against that oppression and through humor. That was nice. Yes, we learned that Mindy lost the award, but it still would have been interesting to have an episode where she goes to the awards and loses. It may sound a little bit Mary Tyler Moore showish, but it would have been interesting to see with these characters. How did they react to that? We don't know what Mirth ends up bringing in for his science fair. Maybe just what's left of Milt, maybe some notes, maybe he goes back to the dinosaur diorama, I don't know. I rate each of these episodes on a 0 to 4 egg scale, which measures how well it delivers what I'm looking for in the series. And as I said, this isn't really it, but it's about on a level with much of the season, so I'm going with a 2.5. It's okay. It's got its moments. You get William Shatner, and you don't really give him much to do. I mean, Lyle Wagner just ate the place up. It was a really fun guest shot, and this is more like, hey, we got Shatner. and he leaves. So it's gimmicky without much of a payoff. I mean, it's nice, but eh. And yeah, we don't get much of Fred. So it's basically these three family members dealing with this out of control computer. I don't know that this episode would have been better in 82. Like I said, it wasn't one that really stayed with me when I watched it as a teenager. I also rate each of these episodes on a 0 to 4 heart scale, which measures how well it supports and promotes the romantic relationship of Mork and Mindy. It's not shippy, but it has moments, so I'm going to go with a 1 out of 4. Is this episode skippable? Yeah, kinda. Unless you just want to see Robin working with one of his mentors and one of his idols at the same time, Houseman and Winters. Or you just are really a Shatner completist. Or if you are fascinated by the layout of the apartment, you will want to see that bathroom. Or if you like Psycho references. This completes the penultimate disc in the DVD collection. Coming into the home stretch, and we'll see what that looks like. But for now, 2.5 eggs, 1 heart. This is Paula Schaffner with episode 85, Mork, Mindy, and Mirth Meet Milt. Garbage in, garbage out.
The computer wore tennis shoes and a twinkle in his eye. Never met a groovier dude, an electric kind of guy. A socket shocked and soundly socked him to a real cerebral high. Blowing his mind into the kind that leaves old Einstein wigging out behind. The computer wore tennis shoes and a smile upon his face, turning on every chick in town at a cosmographic pace. A guy that crazed and amazed and otherwise dazed the whole darn human race. Making the news, paying his dues, that turned on uptight, that out of sight, totally together computer in tennis shoes.